Alrighty, folks. It is a 10:40 here on the East Coast. It is Sunday night. Welcome to Twitchline. I am your host, Hodo. As always, joined with me as my co-host and co-commentator is Mr. Acorn. How are you doing today?
Very well, sir. My mother turned 70 today, so we went over and had some Carolina pork barbecue and had the kids running all over the place and trying to keep them from hurting themselves too much and out of trouble. Um, so it was a nice afternoon, family time. How about yourself? How have you enjoyed the weekend?
I was a shut-in this weekend, pretty much, except for Friday night where I enjoyed the Nationals losing to the Astros in the World Series. And if you are paying attention to ESPN, when we are recording this, they are still losing to the Astros. Their 3 games at home, not very successful, unfortunately. But I just got a lot of rest, and it was very, very fun. Didn't really do very much. Did some casting. I did a talk show also on Saturday night for those interested in Overwatch. I am the casting director for Overwatch, the Owlet League, and we had a talk show on Saturday night that started at 11 o'clock and didn't end until 1:30 in the morning. So very interesting there. So we talked about the league in there. But that was my weekend. So it's very interesting. But let's talk about some socials here real quick, just so you get everybody caught up. Welcome to Twitchline. It is your relationship home for relationship advice on Twitch. You can contact us, as always, on twitchlinelove@gmail.com. You can email us questions, concerns, articles, anything you want us to bring up here on the show. We will go ahead and do that. You can also tweet us if you want to do it on the go and very quickly on Twitter at Twitchline. Just drop us a comment here on there. We pay attention to our Twitter. You can also view us on YouTube. We co-stream onto YouTube at the same time, so we're live on Twitch and on YouTube at the same time. So those watching from YouTube, hello. You can look for us if you search YouTube. Go to Twitchline Love, and you'll find our channel there. Drop a subscribe, and you'll see the archive of all of our previous shows. You can actually listen on in for the various topics that we've covered here since Twitchline has pretty much existed. It's going back to all of the Barts now. It's about 6 months now. So we are 6 months in running as we've been doing this show. So it's been very exciting. We're about to celebrate 7 months going forward. It's actually pretty cool. If you also want to take us on the go, you can go to our SoundCloud page. Just search Twitchline and you'll see us there. You can listen to us on any mobile device through the SoundCloud app. You can do that on your laptop, portable devices, phones, anything you can have on the go that runs the SoundCloud app. You can have us on the go. And today is Sunday, Tim, which means that it is a focus day here on Twitchline. So we haven't done these in a very long time. So we're going to start a little bit slowly and with a topic that is very, very, quote, risque. So how do you think about that?
I'm excited. I think, and not in a sexual way. I'd say I'm excited, interested, interested in where these conversations will go tonight, and seeing if I can expand my world a little bit and knowing about the stuff that's out there and the stuff that people are into. I'm just half curious, half excited. So let's go. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So our topic today is kinks, fetishes, sexual habits, things you should talk about, but you never do. So let's start off with a quick definition of what a fetish and a kink is for those who want to know exactly what it is. The definition of a fetish, as per Merriam-Webster, is an object of irrational reverence or obsessive devotion. And a kink is described by Merriam-Webster as unconventional sexual taste or behavior. Fetish actually has an interesting epidemiology where the term comes from, Tim. It actually comes from the mid-17th century during when explorers were roaming around the world discovering new lands. Um, it was actually with regards to objects of high significance. And if you play video games, specifically World of Warcraft, and understand the trolls in World of Warcraft, they actually have items called fetishes. And they are items of devotion with regards to the trolls. Hence, where that term then was then co-opted into sexual into a quote sexual fetish, where it was an object of reverence or devotion in a sexual sense. So it's a very interesting way to start off with. But what we want to explore is that basically how, where do kinks and fetishes come from? Why are they important, and are they in a way unhealthy? Which we don't believe. And this isn't a show where there's a term that is used currently called kink shaming, which is described as sort of shaming and making fun of people's unconventional sexual tastes. This is not about that. What this is it's trying to um, basically inform all of you who are watching us today as to the nature of some of the kinks and fetishes that people have, and why it's important to relate it back to your partner if you do have one of these fetishes. And the thing about it is, Tim, it is important when we're talking about bedroom behavior, because everybody has a tendency to get freaky a little bit, but people are not necessarily the same. People like different things, and it's one of those things in which it is going to be important to share your likes and your dislikes with your partner, husband or wife. And I think a lot of people have real issues in the bedroom talking about what they like and what they don't like. I think it's because we grow up in a prudish culture somewhat. I don't know if that's the case, but do you believe that couples have a real issue, like basically talking to each other about what their sexual likes and dislikes are?
Absolutely. We're told from our earliest ages that sex is something to be very private about, possibly ashamed about, and to repress. Right? We're told, don't have any kind of thoughts, feelings. Don't do anything sexual until you're married. And you know, in history, it made sense in a way because of how societies worked then. That if you had premarital sex, you'd be, at best shunned and at worst killed for it. So, there are still active societies today that do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the case now, but with religious shame, guilt, that kind of things associated with sex, and parents that may be more traditional minded, it can be a problem.
Yeah.
So, and people, and that's just regular sexuality. We're not talking about kinks and fetishes because that's the next level.
Yeah.
That's beyond standard, and it's getting more attention and it's coming more into the light. And with that, I think what we're going to see is a lot of people, like they do with a lot of psychological phenomenon, they will sort of co-opt it and they will call what they're doing a kink or a fetish when in fact it might just be something they like or a preference or something. Like when you talk about a fetish in psychology, it is something that is very extreme to the point that you almost can't have sexual gratification without this element. And it is, for some people, a problem that they have to go see and get help with, go see a psychologist and get help with. Uh, but again, it's used by everyday people just to mean, hey, this is something I'm into. I like it.
Yeah.
So, you know, you out there listening can determine on some level where you fall on the spectrum of like how necessary the things you want in the bedroom are. And if it's, a few standard deviations away from what you would consider normal and it's interfering with your sexual happiness and or your partner's sexual happiness, then you might actually consider going to talk to someone about it. But we'll go down that path a little bit later. For now, I think Hodo's just trying to get it out there and saying, hey, this stuff exists and people are doing it and it's fine. But, take a look at it and put it in the light and say, this is what we're dealing with.
Exactly. And there are certain things that you want to keep in mind when you are talking to your partner, your husband and your wife. Uh, First things first is you want to basically be able to share. When you are married, or if you are even just living together in an intimate setting, it's important for couples to discuss what they like and they don't dislike, what they dislike in the bedroom together as a couple. Conversations like that, as Tim said, don't happen enough. And one of the reasons where a partner becomes not a partner or strays from a relationship is due to sexual satisfaction. Sometimes it is important that if your partner isn't necessarily fulfilling your sexual needs, it could be partially your fault for not being able to tell your partner what it is that you want. So you don't want to build resentment in the bedroom, and discussion is absolutely key. In most healthy relationships, also pleasing your partner is a very important thing. So making sure that your partner is satisfied as well as yourself is satisfied is absolutely necessary for a healthy relationship. So it can't be you. Selfishness in the bedroom does not work. And you want to make sure that both are satisfied. And if it means talking about your sexual likes and dislikes, and even going to the next level and talking about your fetishes and your kinks, it has to go there. And it has to be an open relationship. And it's something that when you are married, you're going to be sharing things that might be uncomfortable for both of you, but you have chosen to live your life in a relationship together, supposedly forever. Legally, not so much, but it's one of those things you want to keep going. And in the end, you want to be sexually fulfilled. And we believe that communication is key to making that happen.
So before
Yeah.
you go on there,
Hmm.
your focus is really on long-term couples, it seems, and I think that
Hmm.
for this kind of comfort,
Yep.
uh, it is definitely necessary for maintaining that. But there are people out there that are just going out and dating, and they're actually on FetLife and things like that, where
Oh
they're
yeah.
sort of kink and kink focused. They don't necessarily know each other. They don't necessarily have a background in relationships, so they have to. In this case, communication is just as important, even maybe even more important at the very beginning, because it's sort of the foundation, and because uh, doing these things in a sloppy way or the wrong way can actually lead to some real trouble for people. So
No,
uh,
you're absolutely
I was just
right.
saying to
Yeah.
extend it to everyone, anyone who's involved in this kind of thing,
Yeah, and
regardless
you're
of your
absolutely right.
relationship.
You're absolutely right about that. Like the initial introduction was more geared to long-term couples, people already in relationships where this happens, but you're absolutely right. There is a culture out there where people are actually going out there not attached to anyone and looking for specific fetishized or kink experiences out there. And you're right, communication is also very, very important because you don't want anything to go wrong, especially with some of the unusual ones that we'll be talking about later on here in our discussion as we go forward and discuss what it is about. But a little bit more with regards to background here, with regards to why. What are fetishes and why they exist? There's a article here on healthline.com, which is what we use to research, and we wanted to take a look as to the origins of fetishes. It's like, well, what is it? How does it happen? What causes these things to exist? And the article goes into the causes and in regards to relationships as to what is a fetish. Is it a mental illness? No. But doctors have agreed that sexual experiences during or around puberty can lead to fetishes. So, therefore, it's possible that if you have an unusual experience during puberty where you are coming into sexual maturation, um, that particular experience you can associate with something being sexual. and it can be one of those things that can lead to developing a particular fetish. There was a paper that's mentioned here in the article, a 2014 paper in the Archives of Sexual Behavior that queried like 2,000 people, and a lot of them, mostly men, showed that behaviors were associated with attachment styles, parental relationships, things like that, with regards to fetishes. They were also mentioning later on in the article that different people have different reasons for being involved in the sort of fetish or in a fetish or lifestyle kink. Some are into it for sexual gratification. Some are just in it for themselves, and the varying levels of people within this type of community and a type of sexual fetish community or a kink community can vary widely. They mentioned that there is no specific background or you know what is it, level of, you know, wealth that is associated with kinks or fetishes. It is just a wide variety, and they can come from all walks of life and all cultures. So it isn't confined to a particular type of lifestyle or background of a particular person. Now, there was a question of whether or not people with mental illnesses are more prone to having fetishes or kinks, as you know, a lot of the times people try to sort of blame mental illness on weird likes and dislikes or anything like that. And Dr. Richard Kruger, over at the Columbia University Medical Center, said that it is possible for a person to have a mental illness and a fetish, but the two are not indeed correlated. So therefore, it's not like one or the other, or it's not one and is. So therefore, it is not deemed a mental illness. So you shouldn't be ashamed, I think, is the breakdown of what I'm trying to say, is that if you do have a fetish or kink, so it can be something as very small. It can be something that can consume you, but it is one of those things, like your likes and behaviors of other things. It is just a preference for something that you want to have in a sexual manner. So it's one of those things in which I think, in a way, it gets a bad rap because of all the unusual things that are associated with fetishes and kinks, Tim. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to our next screen real quick, and I'm going to preview a listing of what kinks and fetishes that there was an article also that was done here by Allure that listed the top 11 kinks and fetishes that Americans have in the United States. And we're going to list them off here, and we're going to talk about them a little bit here. So the first one that they list is impact play. For those who don't understand what that means, it is the means of hitting another person, spanking, flogging, paddling, consensually. Striking your partner is a big kink. It's actually listed as number one in the Allure article. Role playing, foot fetishing, anal associations. That doesn't necessarily mean sex, but the fixation on the buttocks. Lingerie slash toys. Basically, an additional item to get yourself motivated in the bedroom. Multiple partners, group sex, or swinging. Sensation play, which is one I hadn't heard of, and it is described as receiving or withholding stimuli, which is a very interesting conversation. Bondage and voyeurism. Voyeurism is the one that we will talk about in a second here that can get people in a little bit of trouble. But Tim, when you look at this list, um, is there anything on here that you think is in any way unusual? Because I honestly believe these are all common fetishes slash kinks that I think a lot of people know of.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't know that there's anything listed here that people would be completely surprised about. I think a lot of this stuff, in maybe small ways, will find itself into the average bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
The average bedroom, something like impact play. I don't imagine that everyone is fully beating the hell out of each other in the bedroom, but a slap on the butt, that is probably pretty common.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know if you call that an impact play if it's just one time, right? If we're talking about actual kinks fetishes, that is something that might be more focused on or might be even central to the sexual encounter. So you say, hey, tonight you're going to get spanked and this is how it's going to go. And that might be a thing. But I mean, there's also sort of like a surge in porn these days of things getting really rough and men slapping women
Hmm.
and that being part of it. And what we found is young people that are inexperienced look at porn and think that's how it's supposed to go and are ending up getting themselves in trouble and hurting people because they're trying the stuff. They're trying choking, they're trying slapping and things like that, and they didn't talk to their partner beforehand. So again, that express the importance of communication before going down any of these paths. Um, as far as the role playing goes, I
Hmm.
think that's probably out of all these the most common. I mean, there are all kinds of themes for role playing. People, one taking a position of authority or acting like they're complete strangers. Uh, sort of a false infidelity or high risk encounters, non consent, even taboo relationships, or cosplay, people dressing up like all kinds of things.
Yep.
Pretty standard. And I I think that so when you see people suggesting trying stuff like this in the bedroom, I think this would be one of the things that'd be more easily accepted by both people if they come from a more vanilla background.
Hmm.
Um, Whereas something else like impact play might be not as acceptable to the average person. So, uh, you know, you got to feel this out with your partner and have conversations. Um, the next one's kind of interesting. The foot fetish thing that's kind of specific, but there are so many focused fetishes
Hmm.
uh, where it could be a foot, it could be an article of clothing, you know, women's underwear or something like that. That's just the thing becomes the focus, and these types of fetish, I think, they can be more likely to lead to a problem in a relationship unless the person's partner is open to participating or at least being very accepting of it. Right? If you never thought twice about your feet, but your partner is focusing on that in a very sexual way, unless you get on board with that, you might not be sexually satisfied if if they're going after your feet all the time. Like I say that like it's like some fiend, jumping on your feet or something. But what I mean is someone who is not aware that their fetish might be different and might not be what gets their partner excited, then they need to make some adjustments to make sure their partner is satisfied, or it could cause problems in the relationship.
That's right.
I don't know. What do you see on the list that sort of, you know,
The thing about it is
draws
is
your eye?
the thing about it is like you look towards the bottom end of the list. The sensation play, the bondage, and the voyeurism. A lot of those are associated with control, whether you are in control or not in control. For example, sensation play plays on the fact that you are actually withholding the stimuli from another person and basically making them anticipate what is coming in a more exciting way. So therefore, you have no control over what is going on. Bondage and sadomasochism, also known as BDSM, also has its roots with regards to control and psychological play, making sure that whether you are in control or not in control, and then turning that into a sexual situation where it becomes exciting to whoever's involved. A lot of those times, it involves multiple people because you and your partner will be role playing in a way of who is going to be in charge and who isn't. And there are people who prefer to be the one in charge, to be the sadist in a way, that as it's described, or the masochist, or the person who actually takes all the punishment all the time. And there are a whole bunch of things associated with what plays into that, and how they find that and turn that into an item. And then the last one is voyeurism, and that one is the one that can have very, very troubling real life circumstances. And we've seen tons of this stuff happen. Now, voyeurism isn't necessarily just, people sticking cameras where they don't belong. There are actual voyeuristic clubs where all it is that you're actually going in and you're not participating in anything. That's what's going on. All you're doing is looking, and what is going on is actually for show. Strip clubs, for example, are an example of voyeurism, like a voyeuristic fetish for those who have either gone or never gone to a strip club before. There's no touching for anybody that goes in there. So therefore, it is all voyeuristic play. There are clubs all through the United States where you can observe couples and you do not participate in any sort of way. But where it does become problematic, voyeurs have a tendency to not stick to safe environments and things like that, whereas then people are discovering cameras in places where they don't belong, dressing rooms, bathrooms. There was an article today. They said that there were pilots observing the airplane bathroom in one of their airplanes. Very troubling and very disturbing when you really think about
What
that.
airline was that?
I think that was American Airlines, if I remember. I don't want to misquote, but that was an article that came out today with regards to pilots getting caught being voyeurs. And that's the thing. We talk about instances where there are issues with regards to taking your fetish or kink into an unhealthy place, and that is one of those kinks in which it is a very popular one to have, but it also can have troubling circumstances if you take it too far. But this is one of those things in which these are basically the vanilla. If you really want to talk about kinks and fetishes, these are things that people know and completely understand. I'm going to put up an image here of something that people really don't understand, for example, and that right there is a picture of people in outfits dressed as animals in a kink that's called furries. In a way, it is a form of cosplaying, but it has gotten a lot of fame recently because of what it is. It is sexualizing basically animals and giving them human type features. And they have conventions all over the country. Furry conventions exist. This is just a photo that was posted on Twitter that's also based on an article on metro.co.uk that actually lists a lot of unusual fetishes that we're actually going to put up here on the board of a couple odd ones that I think we should put into play here, because I don't think people have very much heard of these, and these were listed here in the Metro article. So Tim, I'm going to read these off, and I want you to tell me if you have ever heard of any of these. The first one is formicophilia, and that is the fetish of being covered in insects. Does
I
that
have
in
not heard of this, but if there is a phobia version of it, that's where I am right now. I'm feeling it intensely strongly. It sounds like hell to me,
yeah.
but I'm, sure.
Yeah.
There
So
it is.
the thing about it is like these are real terms that were defined. So yes, formicophilia is the fetish of being covered in insects. This type a person with that has this particular fetish would have no issues on a game like Fear Factor or something like that, where they would stick you in a tank and cover you with stuff. They might actually find it fun and even arousing. The next one, as the movie It came out recently is chlorophilia, which is the sexual attraction to clowns. Tim, now there is the fear of clowns, but there is also the opposite of that, where they find clowns sexually attractive. Um, I personally have always found clowns disturbing. They're fun to be at a circus and stuff, but ever since that movie came out, the Stephen King movie, I have never really looked at clowns the same way, and that movie was out when I was a kid. So I'm not sure.
Yeah. Uh, I imagine, considering, again, we both have undergrads in psych,
Yeah,
and we taking abnormal psychology, you're exposed to a lot of, people's phobias, and you learn a lot about all the ones that are out there, and there are, I mean, there are phobias for everything.
yep,
So I can imagine on the other side of that spectrum, there's probably philias for everything, where
correct.
people are stimulated sexually by some of these things. And I think a lot of these ones that you're showing here, while they are very different, uh, they don't seem harmful in any way.
No,
So people engaging this,
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
Right
I
a
mean,
time.
the harmful ones, I think you make the news, and I think people understand those, such as pedophilia, which is the sexual attraction to children, which is very, very unhealthy and downright illegal. So people need to be wary of that. The ones that we're mentioning here are just odd ones that actually do exist. I mean, for example, trypsologenia, trypsologenia is the fetish of getting your hair shampooed. Um, it is a very odd one, but it's one of those things in which I think, doesn't everybody like getting shampooed when they're at the barber shop or at the salon? I would think that's just. I think to qualify here as a fetish, I think there are people who go to an odd length to the enjoyment of that particular act.
Right.
Yeah,
And this is what I was saying earlier.
exactly.
People having, finding something sexy or interesting is, that it just feels good. That's not a fetish. That's not a kink. And
No,
that
it's
doesn't mean you can go around saying, "Oh, I have this." Like, people, I guess they want to be interesting and they want to talk about things so that other people are excited to communicate with them. So they might come out with something like that. But in general, someone who actually has tryptolegnia, or who's experienced it,
yeah,
it is it is not, it's possible that it is not comfortable for them. Like, they can't go to a barber or uh, a hairstylist, because when this happens, when they get their hair washed, they are having a sexual experience with someone doing this to them, and that may not be comfortable for them. They might not be happy about it. So, like, a lot of people just laugh and point at these things and say, "Oh, that's kind of funny. That's weird. It's different," but there are people out there suffering, so you got to be aware of that too.
no, and that's a very, very good point. I mean, like, we're not listing these just so that it's going to be enjoyable. Like, haha, you can laugh about it. These are actual afflictions to people. People actually do have this, and it's not really funny if you are one of those people who, are unable to go to a barbershop or anything like that. I mean, like, one of the last two, cryptolignia, being turned on by stealing things. So basically, the high that they get from stealing things is, it could be considered a fetish. And then dendrophilia, which is the sexual fetish of trees, and that was one I discovered. I discovered that existing in people early on because somebody had brought that up in high school with regards to somebody being very, very loving of a tree on campus. So I didn't understand that at all, and then reading more into it, and it's just it is another one of those things in which somebody has a sexual attachment to a tree. So, and it might be, as you say, something that isn't necessarily something they're proud of, but it could be also something that they just can't control, which makes it interesting in the way that, like, what caused it, what can what happened, or why is this happening, and they just don't necessarily know exactly why. But it also leads to what we were talking before about communication and things that are people not telling their partners or having them understand what's going on. But we want to also go into the fact that there are ways for people who have these odd kinks and fetishes, that when they are talking to everyone, to their partners or to wherever that they're going, that it is important that there are set rules and ideals that you sort of go by with regards to it. First things first, it's okay to say no to your partner's fetish or kink, but definitely you should discuss why, yeah, your partner feels this way or why they think it's important. It's actually somewhat normal to have kinks and fetishes, but it can be unhealthy to over obsess about them and take them outside of the bedroom and into the society that you live in. So it can be very, very problematic. There are ways that you can control these kinks and fetishes, and it's one of those things that Tim, you helped me sort of fill out this section. So maybe you can go into it a little bit, because I was having a little bit of issues here, but you seem to have filled this out very, very well.
Yeah, I just, and this goes along with what we were describing earlier,
Hmm.
that just having something you really enjoy in the bedroom doesn't make it the only thing that's important. And while everyone should be aware and try to be comfortable with their sexuality and how they're feeling, how they want to express it, if you want to express it and involve other humans, why am I saying humans? If you want to express it and involve someone else, you have to consider them and what they want from the encounter. And this is not just about telling people don't be a selfish lover. This is saying that every person involved in your sexual experience must have your consent,
Hmm.
must be a willing participant. And it's a trouble thing for people who are into something like voyeurism. Part of the arousal comes from the idea that the other people might not know that you're watching them.
Hmm.
And while there have been, there's porn that's out there that's made to look real, but is not, people who really are into voyeurism probably are not as attracted to that than an actual hidden camera in a bathroom somewhere where the person doesn't know. There are victims, and there are people that would be devastated to know that they're sexually used in this way, and it's not fair. So you have to consider that, people. Another thing is that you have to recognize that your particular kink is not more important than your partner's enjoyment, their safety, their comfort, or their boundaries. People come up with safe words and things like that to sort of you know basically slow things down or stop things to communicate that they've had enough of whatever the experience they're having. But that might not be enough. Knowing beforehand, this is what I'm willing to do. This is not what I'm willing to do. Um, this makes me uncomfortable. This I'm okay with, and knowing that at any moment in time you can say, I don't want to be doing this anymore, and that person, the person you're with, has to respect that,
Correct.
because the moment you push that beyond someone else's comfort zone, you are moving into a place that is not just morally reprehensible, but probably legally, um, problematic for you. And then the third point that I made there is just, while sexual preferences are sometimes referred to as fetishes, most people are just describing their kinks, right?
Hmm.
So it's fine if you have them, but you just have to realize that a lot of people out there probably prefer something a little more normal. I guess in quotation marks, or conventional, and that your, what makes you happy, just it's important, but it's not more important. So those are the main points I think people should take away when they're thinking about what they're doing in the bedroom, and how to ensure that everyone's having a good time.
Yeah, yeah, and just to sort of sum up here at the end, as we dove into kinks and fetishes, it's completely fine for you to also just want regular, non intrusive sex. Just you and your partner, no extra toys, no extra things incorporated into the bedroom, no nothing like that. That is okay. For those who are watching, it's one of those things I think that once you start diving into this particular type of topic, um, people start to think, is it unusual of me to just not want to consider any of this stuff, or is it one of those things in which I feel like it's odd of me to not prefer this? It's like, no. Everybody has their own likes and dislikes. Everybody has um, their differences with regards to what they want to go into, what they want to be involved in, and how they want to be sexually with another person. So it is important for people to be able to delineate where they want to be and to be able to say yes or no to something that they feel comfortable or uncomfortable with. So
Right.
yeah.
And don't be ashamed either. Like everything. Okay, where am I going with this? You see what's coming out on TV now, and the the more titillating, I like that word, the more exciting, this sort of extra stuff out there sexually is going to get more attention. So it's going to show up on TV shows, and people believe, because they're unaware and unable to filter reality from what's force fed them through the television. They start to think that these kind of behaviors, this kind of stuff, is normal. So, and I keep saying the word normal like it means something. What I'm saying is standard, I guess, or accepted by all as common feature.
Hmm.
So you look at that show Girls, right?
Yeah.
There's that show Girls. After there was one episode where the guy like eats out the girl's ass, and there's a whole bunch of articles about it, and suddenly it's like, oh, it's the thing that millennials are all doing now, and everyone's doing it. And then people are out there like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. I kind of feel uncomfortable about it, but everyone's doing it, so And there's a whole bunch of memes on Instagram about it. Like it, it went from a thing that almost nobody ever talked about to everyone's doing it. Are you doing it? You're not doing it? What are you not doing? Like, how are you going to be good in bed? And, I imagine there's a lot of people out there, maybe with less experience, that are thinking, what do I have to do in bed with someone these days to be considered good? And how far outside of my comfort zones do I have to go to please them, or to feel like I'm not some kind of prude? So, people, you got to just set your own boundaries and define what you're okay with and not. And if you're willing to expand them, great. If not, be true to yourself, because otherwise it's gonna be an issue.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the thing that most people in this world just don't know yet. I blame this basically on the fact that our sexual education in this country has been stifled by various things: religion, conservatism, the inability to understand that sex isn't not just for procreation. So what ends up happening is that you have things like that girls episode that then pushed with regards to that particular act as to making people confused as to what they need to be doing, and that is one of many examples of things that happen. A celebrity could come out and basically say that he prefers a particular technique or a method in the bedroom that requires maybe him from behind or on the bottom or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden people are like, well, that's not the way it should be done, or that's how we always do it, or whatever it is. And people then get confused as to what they want to do. So in the end, we go back to our original point, which was communication with your partner. Super important, whether it is a long-term relationship or somebody you just hooked up with on Tinder, and knowing exactly what you're comfortable with and what you want to do, because it will provide for a good sexual experience for both of you, where you'll end up getting, hopefully, something out of it. But that is where we end our show tonight. And Tim, do you believe it? We've actually made our show budget time for the first time ever without overrunning.
Oh my god.
Usually, folks, we schedule these shows with regards to a certain length, and there isn't a show that we've recorded yet that has not gone over by a certain amount of time. And this is, I think, the first time, as I'm watching the clock, that we actually get to our budget allotment of time, and it is going to make for a great SoundCloud upload. So you can just go as voice there. So any final thoughts that you wanted to talk to about this topic? You were very adamant about what your previous thing was, but I don't know if you had anything else to say with regards to this particular topic, Tim.
I guess parting words.
Mm-hmm.
I would say people who are less confident in the bedroom should just, whatever you do, just be honest with yourself and don't let someone else, because of their experience or what they want in the bed, don't let them push you to do anything you're uncomfortable with. But this is not so different than everything else I've said tonight. I've kind of had one theme tonight.
Yep.
And I only keep hitting on it because I know a good number of people who have been pushed in some way or another in sexual situations. I have personal experience with it. I have heard horror stories. So people just take care of each other, and don't let your urges overwhelm your humanity.
Yeah. Good way to end the show. I would have agreed on everything that he said. So therefore, that's going to end it for us tonight. Hopefully, you have found the Sunday Focus segment a little bit of enlightening as we go into topics. We try to do this every Sunday. In the last couple of weeks, we haven't been able to do so due to personal issues here to us, but we're going to be trying our best to keep having these Sunday segments. Again, join us on Wednesdays when we do have our normal segments here on Twitch here and on YouTube. So remember, you can always email us at twitchlinelove@gmail.com, and you can also tweet us at twitchline. Remember, our YouTube channel is Twitchline Relationship Help and Advice. Just look up Twitchline or Twitchline Love on YouTube, and you'll be able to find our channel there and watch all of our shows that we've archived there on YouTube. And as always, you can search for us on SoundCloud, search Twitchline, and you will find this show going forward, most likely tomorrow. If not the day after, and as some of our previous shows that we have up there that you can take on the go with you on your mobile device, tablet, or laptop, or any place that SoundCloud can run. But that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you very much here for listening. Join us again on Wednesday at around 10 o'clock, where we will be taking questions as well as articles from Twitch as we go in depth as to relationship problems on Reddit to see what we can do to help those poor people. But that's going to do it for us. Thank you, Tim, and this is Z. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we will see you on Wednesday.
Good night, everyone.